What is up, guys? This is Pinzo back with another video today, and what I have for you guys is some patch notes. This is patch 0.14.3. This is a balance patch that comes out on February the 6th, Tuesday, February the 6th, and it will be the balance patch before Project Emerald. So Project Emerald, or Codename Emerald is the Omida original hero that will come out on February 27th, 3 weeks from Tuesday, and this is the balance patch before that. So we're closing in on the end of season 3 of EA, and that will be Emerald will be the last hero released in season 3. This is the third to last balance patch. So we're going to jump right into this. This is a balance patch. Again, this releases on Tuesday. I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on all the changes. I'll try and explain everything to you. Some of these are a little bit funky, so I'll be sure to explain them as best as I can. Jumping in, introduction, this is, you can pause and read this if you want. The only part of this that I really like is that they are tweaking based on community feedback on KWANG. Now, KWANG as a whole, I think is actually a pretty strong character right now, but he has a couple things that are really wonky. His auto attack range is really short, his right click range is really short, and his ult range plus the wind up means that it never really hits anybody. So they took some notes from the community, they took some feedback, and they're gonna do some stuff about that. That's pretty sick. Store update. So we get a couple of skins this patch. We got 4 skins. So Feng Mao gets this skin. This is like a classic Paragon skin. I'll have to see it in game. I like this skin in Paragon. We'll have to see what it looks like in Pred. This is probably Sevarog's best skin as long as it looks good in game. Again, it's hard to judge just based off of splash art, but hopefully this looks as good in game. Same with Twin Blast and Decker. This is like a skin line I'm assuming that they're going to go with. I believe these were Paragon skins, and hopefully they look good in game. Again, I can't really judge these until I see how they look in game and how much they cost in game. So I'll reserve some judgment on the skins, but the splash art looks good. They want to get 1,000 PC testers. I don't know why. If I had to guess, the only reason that I could imagine they need 1,000 PC testers is to test the new game mode. But I don't know, because they said in the blog post, 2 months ago, that they were working on a 3v3 never before seen in a MOBA casual game mode. And so I would imagine that that's what they're testing. But honestly, I don't know. That's pure speculation. So take that with a grain of salt. PlayStation beta got extended kind of indefinitely. They're just going to keep the PlayStation beta open as long as possible, I guess. So that's pretty cool. Moving on to the actual balance changes. So hero changes. Drongo gets a change where his passive will now hit objectives. It will now hit Prime and Fangtooth, but it will do reduced damage. I think that's fine. I thought that it used to do this, but I don't know. I might just be drunk. I don't know. And then his rad rounds gets a bit of a nerf to compensate for this. Drongo is already really strong, so this is just going to make him even better at killing objectives. Iggy gets a bit of a tune-up. This is the issue with Iggy. I don't think this solves the issue. So they're making his turrets scale a little bit less with HP. So at max level, at level 18, they're going to have like 80 less HP than they do right now. Overall, I don't think this matters. The issue with Iggy turrets is that they scale on hero level rather than scaling on ability level. So turrets are, generally speaking, you level turrets second. Sometimes you level them last, but you never max your turret first. So if your turret got like, plus 100 HP for every point in the ability, then if you leveled it first, it would be really tanky early game, and it'd be really good to box with your turrets, but your wave clear would be worse, right? There'd be a trade-off. Right now, your turrets just get really, really tanky. They don't do a lot of damage, but because they proc items like Megacosm, they actually do a lot of damage. So the fact that they get so tanky so early is the issue with them, rather than like just bringing that down a little bit. I really just think it should scale on ability level. Anyway, this is a step in the right direction. Take him down a little bit. This isn't going to change anything about Iggy. Chimera gets a bit of a passive nerf. He's just going to heal a tiny bit less. This isn't really going to change Chimera. He's going to do the exact same thing he does now. He will just be a tiny bit worse at it. I mean, this is a very marginal change in my opinion. So this isn't going to kill the character, but it will just make him, it's just to bring him more in line. And then his E gets a couple of bug fixes. Honestly, because one of these is a nerf of a bug fix, and one of these is a buff of a bug fix. So this is probably like a net, 0 change if I had to guess. Kira, her right click and her ultimate were currently counted as auto attacks. Now they will be counted as abilities. They will still proc auto attack items, of course, but Stonewall is the only item in the game that really interacts with this. It reduces damage taken from physical abilities, so a Stonewall will now reduce damage taken from Kira's right click and her ultimate. This really doesn't matter, just quality of life. KWANG gets some changes. You guys can pause and read these if you want. I'm going to summarize. His passive gets a buff. His passive is now Crunch passive. Straight up. It's just Crunch passive. Every time you use an ability, if it hits somebody, your next auto attack, as long as that auto attack hits an enemy hero, it will reduce all your cooldowns by 1 second. This is a strictly worse version of Crunch passive. Crunch passive, of course, you can proc on minions. KWANG passive does not proc on minions. You don't get the cooldown reduction if you hit minions with it. So it's just worse Crunch passive, and now there's like not even comparable. This is just straight up worse Crunch passive. His Q gets a tune down, so the range on this is getting decreased, which that is good. It's too far. His E gets a bit of a damage bump. They are bumping his early damage numbers on his E and his right click on his dash and his lightning strike. They are bumping the early game damage numbers, but reducing the late game damage numbers a bit. And I think that's fine. I think this character was in a pretty good spot, so I don't think he needs big tune-ups. They're just changing him just a little bit to make his early game a tiny bit stronger. His right click, again, same thing. Damage goes up a little bit early game, but down a little bit late game. Again, by like 10 base damage. You're not really going to notice this a whole lot. But he does get 5% extra scaling on his shield. So if you're building power, you're actually going to get more shielding now, which I think is really good. And this says hitbox improved. I don't know exactly what this means. I don't know if the hitbox was bugged or if they actually, when they say improved, they mean they made it bigger. Because the hitbox on his right click and his ultimate were both tiny. They were teensy tiny hitboxes. So I don't know if that means they made them bigger or if they just made them hit more reliably. I don't know what that means. His ultimate gets a little bit of a damage increase and it gets cast time reduced by 15%, which is good. This ultimate took way too long to cast for an ability that doesn't do a lot. So that is very good. That is a very good change. This also gets the same hitbox improved thing. Don't know if that means it's bigger. I'm guessing whatever they did to the right click is the same thing they did to the ultimate. This ultimate just never hit anybody. If you didn't Q ult somebody, you were never ever hitting them with it. And it was too unreliable in my opinion. So that's going to change, and I think that's a good thing. Bellica gets just a nothing change where she loses some base damage but gains some scaling on her right click. This is just... If you're building full tank Bellica, you're going to do like 20 less damage a bomb. Like, it's not going to matter. Morigesh gets a little bit of changes here. She gets some more healing on her E and a tiny bit of more damage on her Q. Neither of these change the issues with Morigesh. I mean, this is just a character that needs a rework, right? Everyone knows that. Narbash had a bug where you could abuse the mana regen from his passive. You can't do that anymore, but his passive did get a tiny bit of a buff as well. So it detects allies farther out, and you get a little more mana regen from it. So this is overall, I would say, a net buff to Narbash. Rampage gets the E fix that we've been waiting for. I believe this will make this character actually really strong as a bruiser. Right now, I actually think he's pretty good as a bruiser, so fixing this will make him better. Sevarog gets a tiny bit of a buff to his Q cooldown. Doesn't really change anything. Steel. This is probably the most wild change in this patch. Steel gets a little bit of some base stat nerfs, loses a little bit of armor, loses a little bit of mana regen. His right click, shield bash, his stun, loses some base damage at max rank, but the max health damage goes from 4 to 5%. Now, Steel in the solo lane really likes that max health damage, right? It really, really likes it. On top of that, the cooldown at rank 1 is going down by 2 seconds. Late game cooldown will be the same, but early game cooldown much lower. This character, this is a net buff in the solo lane, just straight up. This is a huge buff to solo lane Steel. They do nerf his ultimate. The range on his ult decreases a little bit, and the stun goes down a little bit. But realistically, I actually don't think this really matters. Like, I think there will be times that this matters. Don't get me wrong. There will be times where this matters. But I think the vast majority of the time on Steel, you're not max ranging your ultimate. And I like, especially in the solo lane, right? Especially early game, you know, until the 15-20 minute mark. If you're ulting someone, you're really just up downing, and the range decrease won't affect anything. The stun decrease will affect some stuff. But overall, I think that this is a net buff to Steel, in my opinion. Faye gets some buffs here. She gets her Harvest Nettles, her E. Now you currently stacks every time you hit someone in succession. It does 20% bonus damage up to 60% bonus damage, and now it will be 25% to 75%. So that will make Faye actually really threatening, like at level 5, 6, 7. When she has 3-4 points in her E, she will be able to actually run down other mid laners really, really easily now. She can already do that, but she will be even better at it. So this is actually kind of a scary buff to Faye. She actually, I'll have to test it, but I think this might be actually a pretty big buff. Xeris gets a pretty big buff as well. So his Q cooldown gets decreased dramatically. So 2 seconds at rank 1 and 4 seconds at rank 5 are taken off of this cooldown. It's crazy that like, this is such a crazy buff to this really, really strong ability. And yeah, I think this is going to be insane. His E gets a bit of an attack speed buff. This doesn't really matter, but the Q, this change to the Q was wild. Next gets a bug fix. Riftwalkers. The dash on Riftwalkers will be a little bit slower now. This is to increase combat readability. I think this is a good change because Riftwalkers is one of the few things in the game where sometimes you'll get hit by it in the middle of the fight, and you either didn't see the support or they just like disappeared off your screen, and you're like, whoa, like, where am I? What just happened? And so hopefully slowing this down a little bit will let you at least know that you're getting pulled with Riftwalkers so that you're not so confused. And that is a good thing. I think that's a good change. Other than that, that's it. It's a pretty small patch. I'm going to spend a minute here to give you my thoughts. If all you wanted was the patch notes, you guys can click off, but I'll give you my thoughts on the patch as a whole. Overall, to be completely honest with you guys, this patch doesn't do anything. It doesn't do it, in my opinion, it just doesn't change enough about the game. And this is the same thing that's happened for the last couple patches, which is, I feel, and I don't know if you guys get this feeling too, maybe console players less so, but PC players probably understand what I'm about to say. I feel like I've been playing the same patch for about the last 3 months, right? Since the new items came out, I guess. But even then, that didn't really shift the meta, right? Most of the new items are like situational at best. You're not seeing them built every game. They're not top of the meta items. And to me, it's just, again, I think stale is probably the right word. I feel like I've been playing the same patch for a really long time because so little changes every patch, right? If you guys watched PCC last weekend, you know that, you know, Steel, Bellica, Richter, right? Just pick banned every game, 100% pick ban rate on those 3 characters. Steel gets arguably a buff. You could argue this as a nerf because of the ultimate, but arguably a buff. Bellica gets a complete nothing burger change that doesn't change anything about her. Richter, nowhere to be seen. Wraith, nowhere to be seen. KWANG, I will say, the KWANG changes are good. I'm really glad that they listened to the community on some of these changes. I think that is a huge step in the right direction. Like, that is really good. Props where props are due. You know, the rest of the patch for me is just, it's just so small. And if I talk to the balance team, I know what they would say because they've said it to me in the past. If I said something about that to the balance team, they would say, well, the game's pretty balanced. And it is. It is. I will say, I think this game is generally speaking quite balanced. But at the end of the day, playing the same patch for months after months after months, especially now that we only get a patch every 3 weeks when we used to get a patch every 2 weeks, it just feels like absolutely nothing changes in the game. And to me, that is, I don't know. I think it's bad personally. I think it makes the one player. Oh, okay. Well, I just got a Prime sub while I'm recording. I'm not even streaming right now. Juiced Statue, thank you for the primer, dog. Welcome to the pin zone. But anyway, continuing. I just think it's just a bit of a nothing burger patch. It just doesn't really do anything. It's not going to change how the game is played at all. And yeah, I think that's pretty much my thoughts. Let me know if you agree, disagree, what you think of the patch down below, everything like that. But that's going to be it for me today. So as always, guys, I've been Pinzo. This video's donezo. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.